I am Joshua, 30 years old, and the woman screaming at the top of her lungs while being dragged out of a church by security is my mother. Before I tell you about the police cars flashing outside my wedding venue and the absolute chaos that just unfolded, let me know where you guys are watching from in the comments. I'm reading through them later, and I really want to know who is sticking with me through this madness. To understand why my mother, Deborah, was trying to tackle my wife in the middle of our vows, you have to go back. You have to understand the dynamic of the house I grew up in. It wasn't a house of horrors, at least not on the surface. We were a standard middle-class family in Michigan. My dad, Robert, worked in sales, and my mom was a homemaker who dabbled in local community theater. From the outside, we looked perfect. We had the manicured lawn, the 2 cars in the driveway, and the Sunday dinners. But inside, there was a hierarchy, and I was at the bottom. The top of the pyramid was my younger brother, Caleb. Caleb was the golden child. You know the type. He had that easy smile that could melt butter, the kind of charisma that made adults forgive him for anything. When we were kids, if I broke a plate, I was clumsy and careless. If Caleb broke a plate, it was an accident or the plate was slippery, or, my personal favorite, it was my fault for putting it too close to the edge, even if I was in another room. I remember one specific incident when I was 16 and Caleb was 12. I had spent 3 weeks studying for my SATs. I was gunning for a scholarship because I knew, even back then, that my parents didn't have a college fund set aside for me. They talked about Caleb's future constantly, about which Ivy League school he'd grace with his presence. But for me, it was always, Joshua is smart, he'll figure it out. So I was studying at the kitchen table. Caleb came in bouncing a basketball. I asked him to stop. He laughed and threw the ball against the wall, right above my head. It bounced off, hit a vase my mom loved, and shattered it. When Mom came running in, she didn't even look at the scene. She looked at Caleb, who immediately put on his sad puppy face. Joshua scared me. Caleb lied, his voice trembling perfectly. He yelled at me and I dropped the ball. Mom turned to me, her eyes cold. Joshua, why can't you be patient with your brother? You know he's sensitive. I didn't do anything, I protested, feeling that familiar burn in my chest. He was bouncing the ball in the house. Don't lie to me, she snapped. Clean this up, and apologize to your brother. That was my life. I learned early on to just keep my head down. I focused on my grades, on baseball, and on my 2 best friends, Andrew and Ryan. They were my escape. At their houses, rules were fair. Actions had consequences. At my house, consequences were only for Joshua. By the time I was 23, I was still living at home, working night shifts at a warehouse to save up for my own place. Caleb was 19. He had dropped out of community college after 1 semester because the professors were too demanding and didn't get his vision. My parents, of course, supported this. They said he was taking a gap year to find himself. Finding himself apparently involved sleeping until noon and bringing home a parade of questionable friends. That's when Jessica entered the picture. Jessica was Caleb's new girlfriend. She was striking. I'll give her that. Dyed black hair, piercings, and an attitude that screamed trouble. The first time I met her, she was sitting on our kitchen counter, eating an apple like she owned the place. She didn't say hello. She just looked me up and down and smirked. So you're the brother, she said. Caleb says you're boring. Nice to meet you too, I muttered, grabbing a water bottle and heading to my room. My parents, blinded by their love for Caleb, thought Jessica was spirited. They thought it was good for Caleb to have a girlfriend, someone to motivate him. They didn't see the dilated pupils. They didn't notice the jittery energy that both Caleb and Jessica seemed to share whenever they were together. I did. I started noticing things. Little things at first. I'd come home from my night shift at 4 a.m., and I'd see Caleb and Jessica sitting in her car in the driveway, the dome light on, heads bent over something. As soon as my headlights hit them, they'd scramble. One afternoon, I was walking past Caleb's room. The door was slightly ajar. I heard voices. We need more cash, Cal, Jessica was whispering. Her voice was urgent, scratchy. The guy isn't going to wait. I know, Caleb hissed back. Chill out. My parents get paid on Friday. I'll ask Mom for money for books or something. That's not enough, Jessica snapped. We need real money. I stopped breathing. I stood there in the hallway, my heart hammering against my ribs. I knew Caleb was spoiled, but this sounded different. This sounded desperate. I knocked on the door and pushed it open. Caleb jumped about a foot in the air. Jessica glared at me. Not much. Caleb spat, shoving something under his pillow. I heard you guys, I said, keeping my voice calm. Caleb, are you in trouble? Who's the guy? Caleb laughed. A high-pitched, nervous sound. You're eavesdropping now? Get a life, Joshua. We're talking about concert tickets. A scalper. It didn't sound like concert tickets, I said. Look, if you're in debt or something, get out, Caleb shouted. Mom, Joshua is harassing us. Within seconds, my dad, Robert, was thundering up the stairs. What is going on here? Joshua is spying on us, Caleb whined. He's trying to intimidate Jessica. Dad turned to me, his face red. Leave them alone, Joshua. Why are you always trying to start drama? Are you jealous because your brother has a girlfriend and you're still single? Dad, I heard them talking about owing money. I tried to explain. I think they're in trouble. Enough. Dad pointed a finger at my chest. Stop making up stories to make yourself look better. Go to your room. I looked at Caleb. He was smirking again, that same smirk from when we were kids. He knew he had won. He always won. But I knew something bad was coming. I could feel it in the air, heavy and suffocating. I started locking my bedroom door, something I had never done before. I hid my cash, my savings for an apartment, inside the hollow curtain rod in my room. Paranoia became my roommate. That night, lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, I had a sinking feeling that this wasn't going to end with a broken vase. This was going to shatter everything. The atmosphere in the house shifted from tense to toxic over the next few weeks. It started with small disappearances. My mom, Deborah, was the first victim, though she refused to see it that way. Has anyone seen my gold locket? She asked one evening at dinner. The one Grandma gave me? Caleb didn't even look up from his phone. Nope. Maybe you misplaced it, Deb, Dad said, chewing on his steak. You know how you get forgetful. I saw Caleb exchange a quick glance with Jessica, who was, as usual, eating our food without contributing a dime. Next, it was the electronics. An iPad went missing, then a Bluetooth speaker. My parents were baffled. They talked about checking the locks, about maybe the cleaning lady being suspect. I told them, straight up, it's Caleb and Jessica. I saw Jessica leaving with a backpack yesterday that looked full. Stop it, Joshua. Mom slammed her hand on the table. I am sick of you demonizing that girl. She has a difficult home life. We are providing a safe space for her. You're providing a buffet for thieves, I shot back. That earned me a week of silent treatment from both of them. Then came the night that changed my life forever. It was a Tuesday. I remember because Tuesday was my late start day at the warehouse. So I was home in the evening gaming online with Andrew and Ryan. We were deep into a raid, headsets on, laughing, having a good time. I was in my room, door locked. Around 11:30 p.m., I heard a commotion downstairs. Shouting, crying. I took off my headset. Guys, hold on. Something's going on. I unlocked my door and walked out to the landing. All the lights were on downstairs. I saw my dad standing in the middle of the living room, his face purple with rage. My mom was sobbing on the sofa. And there, standing by the fireplace, were Caleb and Jessica. Caleb was crying, actual tears streaming down his face. He looked like a broken child. I didn't want to say anything. Caleb was wailing. I was scared he'd hurt me. What's going on? I asked, walking down the stairs. The moment I spoke, the room went silent. My dad turned slowly to face me. The look in his eyes wasn't anger. It was hatred, pure, unadulterated loathing. You, he whispered. You thief. What? I stopped halfway down the stairs. What are you talking about? My Rolex, Dad said, his voice shaking. My retirement Rolex. It's gone. And your mother's diamond earrings. The ones from the safe. Okay, I said, confused. So someone broke in? No. Mom choked out between sobs. No one broke in, Joshua. Caleb saw you. I looked at Caleb. He wouldn't meet my eyes. He was burying his face in Jessica's shoulder, shaking. Tell him what you told us, Caleb, Dad commanded. Caleb sniffled, looking up with big, watery eyes. I woke up to get water. I saw Joshua coming out of your bedroom, Dad. He had the green jewelry box. And I saw him putting something in his pocket. When I asked him what he was doing, he told me if I said anything, he'd bash my head in. That is a lie, I shouted, rushing down the rest of the stairs. I have been in my room all night. I'm online with Andrew and Ryan right now. Go check my computer. They can hear you. Stop lying, Dad roared. Caleb told us exactly where you put them. He said you bragged about it. Bragged about what? I didn't take anything. Then why? Dad said, walking over to the hallway closet where I kept my winter gear. Did Caleb say you hid them in your old gym bag? My stomach dropped. I never used that bag. It just sat there. Dad ripped the closet door open, grabbed my old dusty Nike duffel bag, and unzipped it. He reached in and pulled out a bundle of socks. Inside the socks were the Rolex and the velvet box with the earrings. Explain this, Dad hissed, holding up the watch. I didn't put that there, I stammered. My brain was racing. Caleb must have put it there. He's framing me. He knew exactly where to look because he put it there. Why would Caleb steal from us? Mom cried out. We give him everything. Exactly, I yelled. He needs money for drugs. Can't you see it? Look at them. I pointed at Jessica, who was standing there looking pale and twitchy. Don't you dare bring Jessica into this, Caleb shouted, suddenly finding his voice. See? He's doing it again. He's deflecting. Dad walked up to me. He was inches from my face. I could smell the coffee on his breath. I invited a pawnbroker friend over tomorrow to appraise some things. You knew that. You were trying to cash out before I noticed. Dad, please, check my computer. Check the timestamps. I was gaming. I don't care about your stupid games. Dad threw the bag at my feet. Here is the deal. You admit you have a problem. You admit you stole this. You agree to go to rehab or therapy or whatever the hell fixes a thief. And you pay us back for everything else that's missing. Or you get out. I looked at my mom. She was wiping her eyes, looking at me with disappointment that cut deeper than any knife. Just admit it, Joshua. We can help you if you admit it. I looked at Caleb. He was watching me closely, a tiny, almost imperceptible smile playing on his lips. He knew he had them wrapped around his finger. If I admitted it, I would be the family villain forever. I would be the criminal, and Caleb would continue to drain them dry while I took the fall. I didn't do it, I said, my voice steady. I will not admit to something I didn't do. Caleb is lying. Dad's face hardened into stone. Then you have 1 hour. Pack your things. Get out of my house. It's midnight, I said, disbelief washing over me. Where am I supposed to go? That's not my problem, Dad said. I don't harbor criminals. The next hour was a blur. I went to my room. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely zip my suitcase. I grabbed my clothes, my laptop, my toothbrush. I retrieved my savings from the curtain rod. Thank God they hadn't found that yet. As I was carrying my boxes past Caleb's room, the door was open. Caleb and Jessica were sitting on the bed. Caleb wasn't crying anymore. He was laughing. He held up a finger to his lips, shushing me. Bye, Josh, he whispered. Don't let the door hit you. I wanted to punch him. I wanted to scream, but I felt numb. I walked downstairs. My parents were sitting in the kitchen, staring at the table. They didn't look up as I walked to the front door. Mom? Dad? I said one last time. Just go, Mom whispered. I walked out into the cold Michigan night. It was March and the air was biting. I threw my stuff into the trunk of my beat-up sedan. As I backed out of the driveway, I looked up at the house. The house I grew up in. The house where I had learned to walk, to ride a bike. It looked warm and inviting from the outside. But I knew the truth. I drove until I found a 24-hour Walmart. I parked in the far corner of the lot, reclined my seat, and locked the doors. I stared at the harsh parking lot lights buzzing overhead. My phone buzzed. It was Andrew. "Bro, where did you go? You just went AFK. We lost the raid." I typed back, my fingers numb. "I just lost a lot more than a raid." I pulled my jacket tight around me, trying to stop shivering. I was homeless, and my brother was probably celebrating with my parents' money right now. The first night in a car is uncomfortable. The third night is painful. By the second week, it's a living hell. You don't realize how much of your dignity is tied to a shower and a toilet until you don't have them. I tried to keep my job at the warehouse. I really did. But sleeping in a car in Michigan in March meant I was never fully rested. I was stiff, freezing, and exhausted. I'd wake up at 5 a.m. because the cold would seep through the windows like ice water. I'd use wet wipes to clean myself in the McDonald's bathroom before shift, but it wasn't enough. My clothes started to smell. My performance at work tanked. I was slower, making mistakes. 3 weeks after being kicked out, my supervisor called me into his office. "Josh, man, you smell," he said bluntly. "And you look like hell. We can't have you operating the forklift like this. You're a liability." "I'm just going through a rough patch," I pleaded. "I just need a paycheck or two to get an apartment." "I'm sorry, son. We're letting you go." Losing that job broke me. I sat in my car in the warehouse parking lot and screamed until my throat bled. I had burned through half my savings on food and gas to keep the car warm at night. Now, with no income, I was staring at a cliff edge. I ghosted my friends for a while. The shame was too heavy. How do you tell the guys you grew up with that your parents threw you out like garbage? But eventually, hunger wins over pride. I was down to eating peanut butter straight from the jar and stale bread. I texted Andrew. "I need help." Andrew and Ryan were saints. They let me crash on their couches for a few days at a time, rotating so their own parents wouldn't get too suspicious or annoyed. But I knew I couldn't stay forever. I was a burden. I could see it in their parents' eyes. The pity and the silent question. What did he do to make his own parents disown him? One night, Ryan's older brother, James, sat me down. James was a mechanic, a big guy with grease permanently under his fingernails and a heart of gold. "I heard about what happened," James said. "Your brother is a piece of work." "That's putting it mildly," I said, staring at the floor. "Look, my boss, Mr. Henderson, is looking for a front desk guy. Someone to handle the phones, schedule appointments, order parts. You're smart, you know cars a little. I vouched for you." I looked up. "Really?" "Yeah. Go see him tomorrow at 8 a.m. Don't be late." Mr. Henderson's shop, Henderson Auto, was one of those places that had been around for 50 years. It smelled of oil, rubber, and coffee. Mr. Henderson was a man in his 60s, bald, with a white mustache and eyes that seemed to x-ray your soul. He interviewed me for 10 minutes. He didn't ask about my address. He didn't ask why I looked so tired. He just asked if I could work hard and be honest. "I can do both, sir," I said. "I really need this." "You're hired," he grunted. "Start now." The job was a lifeline, but I still didn't have an apartment. The deposit and first month's rent were too high. So, I went back to sleeping in my car, parking it a few blocks from the shop so no one would know. About 2 weeks into the job, I was exhausted. It was a rainy night, and my car had a leak. The back seat was soaked. I had a key to the shop to open up in the mornings. I made a decision. I snuck into the shop around 10 p.m., went into the break room, and curled up on the beat-up leather sofa. It was warm. It was dry. I slept like the dead. I did that for 3 nights. On the 4th morning, I woke up to the smell of donuts. My eyes snapped open. Mr. Henderson was sitting at the break room table, drinking coffee, reading a newspaper. I scrambled up, terrified. "Mr. Henderson." I'm so sorry." I just... He held up a hand. Sit down, son. I sat, shaking. I thought I was fired. James told me about your situation, he said, not looking up from the paper. About your parents. I stayed silent, shame burning my cheeks. You're a good worker, Joshua. You're the first one here and the last one to leave. I don't care where you sleep, as long as you don't burn the place down. He slid a box of donuts toward me. And there's a shower in the back office. It's got hot water. Use it. I looked at him, tears welling up in my eyes. Here was a stranger showing me more compassion in 5 minutes than my own father had in 20 years. Thank you, I choked out. Don't thank me. Get back to work. From that day on, Mr. Henderson, Dave, became the father figure I never had. He let me sleep in the break room for 2 months until I saved enough for a studio apartment. He taught me the business. He taught me about inventory, about customer service, about integrity. Meanwhile, I heard things through the grapevine. My cousin Nicholas, the only family member who still kind of talked to me, messaged me one day. Saw Caleb today. Your dad bought him a brand new Ford Focus for getting into community college again. Posted photos all over Facebook. I looked at the picture Nicholas sent. My parents, beaming with pride, standing next to Caleb and his new car. Caleb looked smug. They looked happy, like I had never existed, like excising me had healed their family. I was eating instant ramen in a break room, wearing work boots with holes in them, while the brother who framed me was driving a new car paid for by the people who birthed me. That anger could have destroyed me, but instead I used it. I poured it into my work. I became the best service advisor Dave had ever seen. I upsold services honestly. I managed the mechanics efficiently. The shop's revenue went up 20% in my first year. I was building a foundation. It was lonely, and it was hard, but it was mine. I didn't know it yet, but I was preparing for the second act of my life. And I was preparing for the moment I would meet the person who would make all this suffering worth it. 5 years passed. 5 years of grinding. I went from the front desk guy to the service manager. Dave started trusting me with more of the business operations. I had a decent apartment now, a 1-bedroom with a balcony and an actual bed. I had a cat named Pancake. I was stable. I hadn't spoken to my parents or Caleb in all that time. I blocked their numbers. I blocked them on social media. I was a ghost to them, and I preferred it that way. Then, Emily drove her Honda Civic into the shop bay. It was a Tuesday morning. She walked in, looking frustrated, holding a coffee cup. She had messy bun hair and glasses, and she was wearing a t-shirt that said, I code, therefore I am. My car is making a noise like a dying seal, she announced. I laughed. That's a specific diagnostic. Let's take a look. I handled her case personally. Turned out to be a loose belt, an easy fix. I didn't charge her for the labor, just the part. When I handed her the keys, she looked at the invoice and frowned. You undercharged me, she said. I charged you what it was worth, I replied. It took 10 minutes. You're a terrible businessman, she smiled, and my heart did a weird flip. Let me buy you dinner to make up for the profit you lost. That dinner turned into 3 hours of talking. Emily was brilliant. She was a software engineer for a logistics company. She was witty, sharp, and incredibly kind. We clicked instantly. Dating Emily opened a door to a world I didn't think existed. A world where families actually liked each other. 6 months in, she took me to meet her parents, Nathan and Janet. I was terrified. I was sweating through my shirt as we pulled into their driveway. I expected the interrogation. I expected the judgment. Instead, Nathan met me at the door with a beer and a handshake that felt solid. Josh, good to meet you. Emily says you know your way around an engine. My grill is acting up. Maybe you can take a look. He winked. Dinner was loud, but good loud. Her younger brother, Connor, was roasting Emily about her cooking. Her sister, Rachel, was showing everyone photos of her dog. Janet kept piling potatoes onto my plate. Eat, Josh, you're too skinny, she said. Later that evening, Nathan took me to the backyard to show me his smoker. So, he said, looking at the coals, Emily told us a bit about your family situation, about the estrangement. I froze. Yes, sir. It's complicated. Doesn't sound complicated, Nathan said, turning to me. Sounds like they didn't appreciate what they had. Their loss is our gain. He clapped me on the shoulder. You treat my daughter right, and you'll always have a seat at this table. I had to look away to hide the moisture in my eyes. It was that simple for them. Character mattered more than blood. 2 years later, I proposed to Emily on the balcony of our new apartment. She said yes before I even finished the question. We were ecstatic. We planned a wedding for the following autumn. Emily posted a photo of the ring on Facebook. We were flooded with congratulations from friends, from her family, from my guys at the shop. Then the bubble burst. My Aunt Sarah, my mom's sister, saw the post. She hadn't been blocked because she rarely posted anything. She must have screenshotted it and sent it to my mother. 3 days after the engagement, I got a text from an unknown number. Joshua? It's Mom. Aunt Sarah showed me the news. I can't believe my baby boy is getting married. Please call me. We miss you so much. I stared at the phone, my hand shaking. The audacity. We miss you. After 6 years of silence? After letting me sleep in a car? I showed Emily. Her face went dark. Block it. I should, I said. But what? But I want to know why, I admitted. Why now? The messages kept coming. Then emails. Then a message from Caleb on Instagram. Hey bro, congrats. Look, Mom is crying every day. Dad is really torn up. We were young and stupid back then. Can we just meet? Just dinner? We want to make things right before the wedding. Family comes first. Family comes first. The irony was so thick I could choke on it. I talked to Dave about it at the shop. They smell success, Dave said, wiping his hands on a rag. They see you doing well, getting married to a nice girl. They want back in on the winning team. Maybe they really are sorry? I asked, a tiny, stupid part of me hoping. The inner child who just wanted his dad to be proud. Maybe, Dave said doubtfully. But watch your back, kid. I agreed to meet them. One dinner. Public place. Denny's on Route 1. Neutral ground. Emily insisted on coming, but I told her to wait in the car. I needed to do this face-to-face, man-to-man with my father. I needed to see if there was any remorse in their eyes. If I had known what I was walking into, I would have driven in the opposite direction and never looked back. I thought I was walking into a reconciliation, or at least a closure. Instead, I was walking into a crime scene of the soul. The Denny's smelled like maple syrup and sanitizer. I sat in a booth near the door, watching the entrance. My hands were clenched under the table. They arrived 10 minutes late. A power move or just their usual disregard for other people's time. Dad walked in first. He looked older, grayer. He was wearing a polo shirt that was tucked in too tight. Mom followed, looking nervous, clutching her purse. And then Caleb. Caleb hadn't changed much, but he looked rougher. He was wearing expensive streetwear, but his eyes had dark circles under them. He walked with a swagger that felt unearned. They slid into the booth opposite me. Dad and Mom on one side. Caleb pulled up a chair to the end. Joshua, Mom breathed, reaching across the table to touch my hand. I pulled it back. Deborah, let him breathe, Dad said, his voice gruff but trying to be warm. You look good, son. Heard you're managing a shop now. I am, I said coldly. What do you want? We want to see you, Mom said, eyes filling with tears instantly. We want to meet your fiancé. We want to be part of your big day. You kicked me out, I said. You gave me 1 hour to pack. You called me a thief. You let me be homeless. That was a difficult time, Dad said, waving his hand as if dismissing a waiter. We were all emotional. Mistakes were made on both sides. Both sides. I laughed, a harsh sound. What mistake did I make? Existing? We thought you stole the watch, Josh, Caleb chimed in. His voice was casual, like we were discussing sports. The evidence was pretty damning. The evidence you planted. I stared at him. Caleb shrugged. Water under the bridge, man. I'm sorry if you felt that way, but look at us now. We're family. We should move on. Did you find the watch? I asked, looking at Dad. Dad shifted in his seat. Well, actually, yes, we did. And it turns out it wasn't you, Dad muttered. Who was it? I pressed. I knew. I just wanted them to say it. It was a misunderstanding with Jessica, Mom said quickly. She had some influence on Caleb. They took it. So Caleb took it, I corrected. He was under the influence, Mom defended. He was a child. He was 19, I snapped. I was 23. You threw me on the street. When did you find out? The table went quiet. When did you find out it was Caleb? I repeated, looking at each of them. Does it matter? Caleb said, picking at a menu. We know now. It matters to me, I said. Because if you found out a week later and you let me sleep in my car for 6 years, that's not a mistake. That's malice. Dad sighed. He looked at Mom. We found out about 2 weeks after you left. The world stopped. The noise of the diner faded away. 2 weeks. I whispered. 2 weeks. Caleb got caught trying to break into the neighbor's car, Dad admitted, looking at his coffee cup. The police were involved. We had to get a lawyer. He confessed to the other thefts to get a plea deal. I felt like I had been punched in the gut. So you knew. You knew I was innocent 2 weeks after you kicked me out. Why didn't you call me? Why didn't you come find me? We couldn't, Mom sobbed. Joshua, you have to understand. Caleb was in trouble with the law. If people knew he was the one who stole from us too, his reputation, his future, he would have been a felon. We had to keep it quiet. So you let everyone think I was the thief? I asked, my voice rising. To protect him? You were always the strong one, Dad said, as if that was a compliment. We knew you'd land on your feet. Caleb, he's fragile. He needed us. I looked at them, really looked at them. They weren't monsters. They were worse. They were cowards. They sacrificed their strong son to protect their weak one because it was easier for them. Because Caleb was their reflection, and I was just their spare part. You let me starve, I said, my voice shaking with rage. I lost my job because I didn't have a shower. I ate garbage. And you guys were buying him a new car. That car was to help him get to his court-mandated therapy. Mom cried. We were trying to save him. And who saved me? I slammed my hand on the table. The silverware clattered. People turned to look. Who saved me? Not you. Strangers saved me. Dave saved me. Emily saved me. Don't make a scene, Dad hissed. We are here to offer a truce. We are willing to forgive your outburst and walk you down the aisle. We want to be parents again. You want to look like good parents at a wedding, I corrected. You want the photos. You want the credit. We are your family, Caleb shouted, standing up. You owe us. I owe you nothing. I stood up too. Suddenly, a voice cut through the tension like a blade. I think it's time for you to leave. I turned. Emily was standing there. She had come in. Her face was pale, but her eyes were blazing. She walked up to the table and stood next to me. Who is this? Mom asked, sniffing. This is my fiancée, I said. The woman who knows more about loyalty than you ever will. You must be Deborah, Emily said, her voice icy. I heard what you said. You protected a criminal and discarded a good man. You aren't parents. You're enablers. Don't you speak to me like that. Dad stood up, puffing his chest out. I am his father. You were his sperm donor, Emily said brutally. Dave is his father. Nathan is his father. You're just a regret. Dad looked like he was going to explode. Joshua, are you going to let her talk to us like this? If you walk out that door with her, don't expect a cent of inheritance. Don't expect us to ever call you again. I looked at my dad. I looked at the man whose approval I had craved for my entire childhood. And suddenly I felt light. The weight was gone. Keep your money, I said. I make more than you now anyway. And as for calling me, don't worry. You're blocked. I grabbed Emily's hand. Let's go. You'll regret this, Caleb yelled as we walked away. You're tearing this family apart. We walked out into the parking lot. The cool air hit my face. I realized I was crying. Not sad tears. Angry tears. Relief tears. Emily hugged me by the car. She held me tight while I shook. I'm so sorry, she whispered. Don't be, I said, wiping my face. I finally know I didn't lose anything. They did. But as we drove away, I looked in the rearview mirror. They were standing outside the Denny's arguing. I knew this wasn't over. People like them, they don't handle rejection well. They don't handle losing control. I thought I had closed the chapter. I didn't realize I had just started a war. The silence lasted exactly 12 hours. The next morning, I woke up to a notification from Facebook. Then another. Then 10 more. My mother had gone nuclear. She had posted a long, rambling essay on her timeline, tagging me, Caleb, Aunt Sarah, and pretty much everyone in our hometown. The title? A Mother's Broken Heart. It was a masterpiece of fiction. She claimed that I had abandoned them in their old age. She claimed that I had been brainwashed by a controlling new woman. She conveniently left out the theft, the kicking out, and the homelessness. Instead, she painted a picture of a prodigal son who had become arrogant with wealth and turned his back on the humble family that raised him. Caleb chimed in the comments. Money changes people. We still love you, bro. Just come home. It was infuriating. My phone started blowing up with messages from distant relatives calling me ungrateful. People who hadn't spoken to me in a decade were suddenly experts on my moral character. Don't engage, Emily said, taking my phone away. That's what they want. They want a public fight. They're lying about you, I said, pacing the living room. They're calling you manipulative. Let them, she said, though I could see she was hurt. We know the truth. The people who matter know the truth. We decided to lock down our social media. But we knew the wedding was the real target. The date and location had been on the original post that started this mess. They knew where and when. We need security, I told Emily. Real security. Emily's brother, Connor, worked in event security for concerts. When we told him what was happening, his face went hard. I got this, Connor said. I'll bring my team. I'll work the door personally. If they show up, they don't get within 100 feet of you. The wedding day arrived. It was a crisp October day, beautiful and bright. We were getting married at a renovated barn venue, gorgeous and rustic. But underneath the joy, I was on edge. Every car that pulled into the lot made me flinch. The ceremony was scheduled for 4 p.m. Attempt number 1, 2:30 p.m. I was in the groom's suite with Andrew and Ryan, trying to figure out how to fold a pocket square. Connor radioed in. Josh, we got a situation at the service entrance. My stomach dropped. Who is it? It's Caleb. He's wearing a caterer's uniform, literally carrying a tray of appetizers. But he's wearing Yeezys. I almost laughed. You caught him? Yeah, we spotted him immediately. He tried to say he was working for the vendor. When we asked for ID, he tried to run past us. We escorted him off the property. He was shouting that he has a right to see his brother. Keep him out, I said. Done. Don't worry. One down. But I knew the bosses were yet to come. Attempt number 2, 3:45 p.m. Guests were being seated. I was standing near the altar, waiting. The music was playing softly. I saw Connor talking into his earpiece near the main entrance, looking agitated. He walked over to me, keeping his voice low. Your dad is here. Where? Front gate. He's in a tuxedo. He's demanding to come in. He's telling the guests arriving that he's the father of the groom and we're mistakenly barring him. He's making a scene, Josh. He's saying he paid for all of this. I felt the heat rise in my neck. He didn't pay for a dime. Tell him to leave. He's refusing. He says he won't leave until he speaks to you. I looked at Nathan, my father-in-law. He saw my face and walked over. "What's wrong?" "My dad is at the gate." Nathan didn't hesitate. "I'll handle it." "Nathan, you don't have to." "I'm the father of the bride," Nathan said, buttoning his jacket. "And today, I'm your dad too. Stay here." Nathan walked to the gate with 2 security guards. I watched from a distance. I saw my dad, Robert, red-faced and pointing fingers. I saw Nathan step in front of him, calm but immovable. They exchanged words. My dad tried to push past. The security guards blocked him like a wall. Eventually, my dad stormed off, kicking gravel, shouting obscenities that echoed across the parking lot. 2 down. Attempt number 3, the climax. The ceremony started. Emily walked down the aisle. She looked breathtaking. For a moment, the world narrowed down to just her. I forgot about Caleb. I forgot about my parents. I just saw my future. We started our vows. I was holding her hands, reciting the words I had written. To stand by you, in every storm, to be your shelter. Crash. The side door of the venue, the one meant for emergency exits, flew open. It slammed against the wall with a sound like a gunshot. Everyone turned. My mother stood there. She was wearing a white dress, a wedding dress. It was an old-fashioned one, maybe her own from 30 years ago, yellowed and ill-fitting. Her hair was wild. She looked like a ghost from a horror movie. "Stop!" she screamed. Her voice cracked, hysterical. "I object. I object to this union." The silence in the room was absolute. Then the murmurs started. "You cannot steal my son," Mom shrieked, stumbling into the aisle. She looked deranged. "He is my baby. You turned him against us. I have a right to be here." She started running toward the altar. I stepped in front of Emily, shielding her. "Mom, stop. Get out. Don't you talk to me like that." She was crying, mascara running down her face. "I am your mother. I birthed you. You owe me this respect." She was 10 feet away. Then Connor was there, and 2 other guards. They didn't ask nicely this time. They grabbed her arms. "Get your hands off me," she screamed, thrashing. "Police! Help! They're assaulting me." "You're trespassing, ma'am," Connor said, his voice grim. "You need to leave. Now." "Robert! Caleb! Help me!" she wailed. I looked past her. Outside the open door, I saw Dad and Caleb trying to push past the other guards, but they were being held back. "Get them out!" I yelled. "Get them all out!" It took 4 men to drag my mother out of the venue. Her screams faded as they pulled her into the parking lot. "Ungrateful! You'll go to hell for this, Joshua! You'll go to hell!" The door slammed shut. The room was dead silent. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it would burst out of my chest. I looked at the guests. They looked horrified. I looked at Emily. She was trembling. I felt a wave of shame so hot it burned. My family, my trashy, toxic family had ruined the most important moment of my life. "I'm so sorry," I whispered to Emily. "I'm so sorry." Emily took a deep breath. She looked at the door, then back at me. She squeezed my hands hard. "They don't get to win," she said, her voice shaking but firm. She turned to the officiant. "Keep going, please." Are you sure?" the officiant asked. "Yes," I said, finding my voice. "Let's finish this." We finished the ceremony. We kissed. And when we walked back up the aisle, the applause was deafening. It wasn't just polite clapping. It was defiant. Everyone in that room knew what we had just survived. They were on our side. Outside, blue and red lights were flashing. The police had arrived. I walked out, still holding Emily's hand, to see my mother, father, and brother in handcuffs, leaning against a squad car. Seeing your own mother in the back of a police car on your wedding day is an image that sears itself into your retinas. It's not something you just shake off with a glass of champagne. As the red and blue lights faded into the distance, taking Deborah, Robert, and Caleb to the county lockup for trespassing and disorderly conduct, a strange silence settled over the venue. It wasn't awkwardness, exactly. It was a collective exhale. The tumor had been excised. The party could finally breathe. We didn't let them ruin the night. That was the pact Emily and I made right there on the gravel driveway. We went back inside. We ate the steak. We danced. I laughed louder than I had in years. But underneath the celebration, my mind was already working. I knew them. I knew this wasn't the end. They would spin this. They would twist the narrative until they were the martyrs who were brutally arrested while trying to show love to their son. I was right. We spent our wedding night at a hotel near the airport because we were flying to Japan the next morning. But instead of sleeping, I was pacing the room at 6 a.m., scrolling through my phone. They had been bailed out, of course. Drove home, probably fueling their rage with every mile. And the smear campaign had shifted gears from sad parents to victims of police brutality and an ungrateful son. My cousin Nicholas sent me a screenshot from a private family group chat I had been kicked out of years ago. Robert, can you believe it? Arrested at our own son's wedding. He set us up. He hired thugs to provoke us. We just wanted to give him a blessing. I have never been so humiliated. Joshua is dead to us. Aunt Sarah. That boy has the devil in him. I'm praying for you, Deborah. I showed Emily the phone. She was sitting up in bed, looking beautiful even with messy hair and day-old mascara smudges. She didn't get angry this time. She just looked tired. They aren't going to stop, Josh, she said softly. As long as they control the story, they will keep coming after us. They will poison your reputation. They might even try to sue us for emotional distress or some nonsense. I know, I said. I walked out to the balcony. The sun was rising. That's why we have to end it, not just block them. We have to finish it. How? The truth, I said. All of it. No more protecting their reputation. No more hiding the fact that Caleb was a thief. No more silence about the 6 years I spent homeless. We called Rachel Emily's sister. Rachel works in digital marketing, but honestly, she's a weaponized social media genius. She knows exactly how to craft a message that hits hard and spreads fast. We met her for breakfast at the airport terminal before our flight. Okay, Rachel said, opening her laptop on the sticky food court table. If we do this, there is no going back. This is the nuclear option. You are burning the bridge, the river, and the land on both sides. The bridge was nuked from orbit 6 years ago, I said, taking a sip of black coffee. I'm just clearing the rubble. We spent 2 hours drafting the post. We didn't use emotional language. We didn't name-call. We used facts. Cold, hard, verifiable facts. I called Dave at the shop. Dave, I need a favor. You know that buddy of yours in the precinct? The one who helped us when the shop got broken into last year. Yeah. Dave sounded groggy. I need the police report from 6 years ago. The one where Caleb was arrested for breaking into the neighbor's car. The date is crucial. I need to prove they knew he was a thief 2 weeks after they kicked me out. I'll have it in your inbox in 20 minutes, Dave said. Give him hell, kid. When the email dinged, my hands shook. There it was. A PDF scan of a police report. Suspect, Caleb Miller. Date of arrest, March 14, 2017. I had been kicked out on March 1st. They knew. They knew within 14 days. We attached the screenshot of the police report to the post. We attached the photos of the damages Caleb had caused to the cars he broke into. We attached a timeline of events. Rachel looked at me, her finger hovering over the post button. Ready. I looked at Emily. She nodded. Do it. The post went up. To everyone asking about the incident at my wedding. Here's the truth about why my parents were arrested, and why I haven't spoken to them in 6 years. We boarded our plane to Tokyo. 12 hours of silence. 12 hours where we couldn't check our phones, couldn't see the fallout. It was the most peaceful 12 hours of my life. When we landed at Narita Airport and I turned my phone back on, it nearly exploded. The post had been shared 4,000 times. The comments were a landslide. Strangers, friends, distant relatives. Everyone was reading it. The timeline was undeniable. The police report was the smoking gun. You can argue with feelings, but you can't argue with a time-stamped arrest record that proves you protected a criminal while your other son slept in a Walmart parking lot. Comment from cousin Nicholas. I had no idea. Josh, I am so sorry. I asked your dad about this years ago and he swore you admitted to the theft. I feel sick. Comment from an old neighbor. I remember that night the police came for Caleb. Robert told us it was a misunderstanding about a borrowed car. I can't believe they let you take the fall for that. Comment from Aunt Sarah. Deleted, it was a total vindication. But the most satisfying part wasn't the likes. It was the silence from my parents. They didn't comment. They didn't post a rebuttal. They went dark. They deactivated their Facebook accounts within 4 hours of my post going live. They knew they couldn't spin this. The truth was out and it was ugly. We spent 2 weeks in Japan. We ate sushi in Tsukiji, visited temples in Kyoto, and got lost in the neon streets of Shinjuku. For the first time in my life, I wasn't looking over my shoulder. I wasn't waiting for the other shoe to drop. The monster under my bed had been dragged out into the sunlight, and he shriveled up. When we got back to the States, there was a letter waiting for me at the shop. No return address, but I recognized the handwriting. It was shaky, jagged. Caleb. I debated throwing it in the shredder. Dave was watching me. You don't have to read it, Dave said. I know, I said. But I need to know if he's still delusional. I opened it. It wasn't a threat. It was pathetic. Josh, I'm writing this from a court-ordered rehab facility. Part of the plea deal for the wedding stunt. Mom and Dad paid for a lawyer to keep me out of jail again. But the judge was pissed. I saw your post. Someone showed me. You're right. About everything. There's stuff you don't know. It wasn't just stealing for fun or for Jessica. We were into bad stuff, Josh. Oxy. Pills. I owed $3,000 to a dealer who said he'd break my legs. That's why I took Dad's Rolex. I was terrified. When you caught us, I panicked. I threw you under the bus because I knew Dad would kick you out. But he'd never kick me out. I banked on his favoritism. And it worked. I've hated myself for 6 years. Every time they bought me something new, I felt like throwing up. But I was too much of a coward to tell the truth. I liked the car. I liked the money. I'm sorry. I know that doesn't fix anything. You don't have to forgive me. I just wanted you to know that you weren't crazy. You were the only sane one in that house. I'm not asking to be brothers again. I just wanted to say it. Caleb, I put the letter down on my desk. I felt nothing. No surge of brotherly love. No sudden desire to run to the rehab center and hug him. Just a quiet confirmation of what I had always suspected. He was a coward. A drug addict and a coward who let his big brother lose everything to save his own skin. Well? Dave asked. He admits it, I said, tossing the letter into the trash bin. He was on pills. Owed a dealer. Does it change anything? No, I said. It just means I was right to leave. The fallout continued for months. My parents became pariahs in their own community. Small towns talk, and my post had given them plenty to talk about. The church ladies who used to praise Deborah's pie now whispered when she walked into the grocery store. Dad's golf buddies started making excuses not to play with him. They had lost their social currency. For people like them, that was a punishment worse than jail. Meanwhile, my life was taking off. With the wedding drama behind us, I focused entirely on my career and my new family. Dave called me into his office one afternoon about 3 months after we got back from Japan. Sit down, Josh. He poured 2 glasses of the good scotch he kept in his bottom drawer. I'm getting old, Dave said, swirling the amber liquid. My knees hurt, my back hurts, and honestly, I want to spend more time fishing. You're not retiring, I laughed. You'd die of boredom in a week. I'm not retiring completely, he grinned. But I'm stepping back. We're opening 3 new locations in the next 2 years. I can't run 4 shops. I need a partner. Not an employee. A partner. He slid a contract across the desk. Henderson and Miller Automotive Group. I'm offering you 20% equity now, with a path to 49% over the next 10 years, Dave said. You earned it. You built the systems we use. You trained the guys. You're the reason we're profitable enough to expand. I stared at the paper. Miller. My name. Next to his. Dave, I don't have the capital to buy in, I said. Sweat equity, Dave said firmly. You already paid for it. You paid for it when you slept in that break room and still opened the shop at 7 a.m. every day. You paid for it when you treated every customer like they were your own grandmother. Sign the paper, son. I signed it. My hand didn't shake this time. That night, Emily and I celebrated with a bottle of wine on the floor of our new house. We had just closed on a 3-bedroom colonial a few towns over. It had a big yard for a dog, which Emily was already lobbying for, and a sunroom for Pancake. To Henderson and Miller, Emily toasted, clinking her glass against mine. To us, I said. To the family we built. We sat there in the empty living room, planning where the sofa would go, debating paint colors. It was so mundane, so normal, and that was the beauty of it. I had fought through hell to get to this boring, wonderful normality. I thought about my parents sitting in their big, silent house, surrounded by the ghosts of their lies. I thought about Caleb in rehab, finally facing his demons without a safety net. And then I looked at Emily, laughing as she tried to describe a shade of blue called serenity. I realized I didn't hate them anymore. Hate requires energy. Hate requires you to hold onto a connection. I didn't have that. I had indifference. They were just people I used to know. Strangers who shared my DNA but none of my values. It's been a year since the wedding. I'm sitting on the back porch of our house. It's early morning, the kind of quiet Sunday morning that feels sacred. The grass is wet with dew. Pancake is currently stalking a very confused beetle near the flower bed. Inside, I can hear the clatter of pans. Emily is making pancakes, the food, not the cat. In a few hours, Andrew and Ryan are coming over for the game. Dave is coming for dinner. My in-laws, Nathan and Janet, are dropping by later to help us plant a vegetable garden. This is my life now. Sometimes, when the house is quiet, I let my mind drift back to that parking lot. I remember the smell of the stale car upholstery. I remember the gnawing hunger in my stomach. I remember the overwhelming, crushing loneliness of staring at the dashboard clock at 3 a.m., wondering if I would ever matter to anyone. It's hard to reconcile that person with the man sitting here today. People ask me if I forgive them. It's the most common question I get when I tell people my story. Don't you want to make peace? Life is short. Here is what I have learned. Forgiveness isn't a requirement for happiness. Peace isn't about fixing what is broken. Sometimes, peace is about sweeping up the glass and buying a new window. I haven't spoken to Robert or Deborah since the wedding. I haven't visited them. I haven't unblocked their numbers. I heard through the grapevine that they sold their house. Downsized. Apparently, the social stigma was too much, and they moved to Florida to start over where no one knows their story. I hope they find peace there. I really do. But I hope they find it far away from me. Caleb is out of rehab. He's working at a landscaping company. He sent me an email a few months ago, just a short update. He's sober. He's trying. I didn't reply. Not because I want him to fail, but because I know my boundaries now. I wish him well, but I can't be his safety net. I can't be the person he measures his recovery against. He needs to do this on his own, just like I did. I looked down at my hands. There's a scar on my thumb from a wrench slipping when I was an apprentice at the shop. There's a callus on my finger from where my wedding ring sits. These are the marks of the life I chose. The screen door squeaks open. Emily walks out holding 2 mugs of coffee. She sits down next to me, leaning her head on my shoulder. What are you thinking about? She asks. Just how far we've come, I say. We have a lot of weeding to do today, she says, looking at the garden. My dad is bringing the rototiller. Nathan is going to try to micromanage the tomatoes again. Isn't he? Oh, absolutely. He has strong opinions on soil pH. I laugh. It's a light, easy sound. You know, I say, I used to think family was a noun, like a thing you have, a static object. And now, Now I know it's a verb, I say. Family is what you do. Is showing up. Is taking the late shift so your buddy can go to a concert. Is driving 2 hours to fix a flat tire. It's standing up in a church and telling security to drag a screaming woman out because she's hurting the person you love. Emily squeezes my hand. That was pretty heroic, by the way. I was terrified. I admit. That's what made it heroic. We sit there for a while, just watching the sun burn off the mist. I think about the concept of the golden child and the scapegoat. It's a script written by insecure parents, a play where the roles are assigned at birth. But the thing about scripts is that you can rip them up. You can walk off the stage. You can write your own play. My play is pretty simple now. It's about a guy who works on cars, a guy who loves his wife, a guy who has friends who would take a bullet for him, a guy who sleeps soundly at night because he has nothing to hide. I look at the empty driveway. In a few hours, it will be full of cars. Not Porsches or Ferraris, but F-150s and Honda Civics. The cars of people who work for a living. The cars of people who show up. I realize I don't miss the inheritance I was threatened with. I don't miss the status of being the miller's son. I don't miss the lie. I have the truth. And the truth is I'm rich. Not in the way my parents wanted to be, but in the way that actually matters. Ready to go in? Emily asks. Pancakes are getting cold. Yeah. I say, standing up and stretching. Let's eat. I walk back into the house, my house. I close the door behind me. And for the first time in my life, I know exactly where I belong. Thank you for walking this road with me. It wasn't an easy story to tell, but it was a necessary one. If you take anything away from my journey, I hope it's this: your worth is not defined by how your family treats you. We are raised to believe that blood is thicker than water, a phrase often used to guilt us into enduring abuse. But the full original proverb is actually, the blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb. It means the bonds we choose, our friends, our partners, our mentors, are often stronger than the bonds of biology. If you are the black sheep or the scapegoat, please know that it is not your fault. You were likely the truth teller. You were the one who refused to play the game. That makes you dangerous to a toxic system, but it makes you powerful in the real world. You have the strength to survive. You have the capacity to build a logical family. People who love you for who you are, not for what you can do for them. Don't be afraid to set boundaries. Don't be afraid to walk away. And most importantly, don't be afraid to succeed without them. The best revenge isn't anger. It's a life well lived. I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to choose your logical family over your biological one? What was the moment you realized you had to draw a line in the sand? Share your story in the comments. Or, if this story resonated with you and gave you hope, just comment the word good below. It lets me know that we are connected, and that we are all survivors building our own beautiful, imperfect, wonderful lives. Stay strong. You are not alone.